But hey, let's go to the guy that we led off the segment with and that highlight from Fox, and that was Caleb Williams, man. He looked great yesterday. Of course, the Bears, in dramatic fashion, found a way to lose because that's what
Yeah.
they do at the end of games. They do it in creative fashion, and once again, they caught the L. Had Minnesota right there, and a
You're
team
killing
that
me,
you know,
Smalls.
yeah. Push them to overtime, and I'm thinking, okay, oh, they're going to get over the hump here. No, they squandered it. They lost it yet again at home. And a lot of Bears fans went home with heads hanging low. But Caleb Williams offered some hope for the future, to say the least. A guy that went 32-47, 340 yards, a pair of touchdowns, also had 6 carries for 33 yards. He's shifty, he's crafty on the ground. Very impressive game for him from start to finish. He was a top 5 fantasy quarterback this week, no matter what happens tonight
Yeah.
with these two guys, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. He's at number 3 right now. He would slip to 5 if they jumped him, but he's still going to have an elite week. I look at the rest of the season schedule. At Detroit on Turkey Day on Thursday, at San Francisco, and then against the Minnesota Vikings again, but on the road. So 3 consecutive road games. Then Detroit and Seattle at home. All very tough opponents. You look at Detroit, 27th most fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position. San Francisco, 26th most fantasy points allowed. Minnesota, favorable matchup, 11th most fantasy points allowed. Then Detroit again at 27. And Seattle's only get up to 22nd most fantasy points of quarterbacks. He's only number 29 in just completion percentage, number 19 in ADOT. But again, trending in the right direction. So what do you see from Caleb Williams rest of the season, and how impressed were you with his performance yesterday?
Yeah, really the last 2 weeks, man, and mainly because we're seeing what we used to see from Caleb, especially like those first couple years in college, where more quarterback design runs. That's what I wanted to see. Hell of an athlete, can use his legs, playing with more confidence, getting rid of the ball quicker. A lot of those sacks, as bad as the Bears' offensive line is in pass protection, like 40% of the pressure that he was seeing was coming from him, hanging onto the ball way too long. Now he's getting rid of the ball quickly. I really like what I've saw the last couple weeks. You brought up the schedule. The good thing is, though, if you're playing Caleb Williams, Bears are probably going to be trailing in the majority of these games, right? Double-digit dogs to the Lions on the road Thanksgiving Day. We'll see what San Francisco looks like here in 2 weeks if Brock Purdy's even back. Minnesota, they'll be dogs. Detroit, again, they'll be dogs. Seattle, they'll be dogs. And then Green Bay. So they're probably going to be chasing points. And now with the new play caller, I kind of like Caleb Williams. Maybe like 20 to 15 range. I don't know that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, but next year for sure. But I definitely think that there's steps. He's going in the right direction, I'll say.
Yeah, no question about that. And again, I like the arsenal around him. We really got Keenan Allen involved early and often in that game, and that was a very positive sign considering how Keenan Allen's been dinged for the last seemingly several weeks. All right, let's move on to the running back position. A guy that you and I called. We loved him this week. We said he was must-start material, and he lived up to the hype, and that was Bucky Irving. Uncle Buck, man, bringing the noise, to say the least, to New York and shutting up the Tommy DeVito love. I do love you, Tommy DeVito. Please hook me up with all the Rayos. But look at Irving, 12 carries, 87 yards on the ground, had a 56-yard scamper that was brilliantly played and well blocked by Baker Mayfield down the field. Along with 87 yards on the ground, had a touchdown on the ground. Also caught 6 balls for 64 yards and a full-blown RBBC with Rashad White, who also scored double-digit fantasy points, and Sean Tucker, who also found the end zone. More of an indictment on the New York Giants than really anything else. But look at Bucky Irving's rest of the season schedule. At Carolina, most fantasy points allowed at the running back position. Hello. Against Vegas, 17th most fantasy points allowed. At the LA Chargers, second fewest fantasy points allowed. At Dallas, that would be the second round of the fantasy playoffs, third most fantasy points allowed. And then Carolina in fantasy football title games. Are you kidding me? Bucky Irving is going to make people some bank this season. He is number 2 in yards after contact per attempt among all NFL running backs at 4.19. He is top 10 in missed tackles for us with 34. I don't care if he is a full-blown RBBC. All I need is around 12 to 15 touches, and the dude is going to inflict damage. Enough damage to make you some Dolores in the world of fantasy football. Too bullish of a perspective. What are your thoughts on Bucky Irving?
No, I think he could be a league winner, man. 18 touches, going into the bye, week 11 was coming off a season high, career high, because he's a rookie, 16 touches. And, now, especially with what he could offer in the pass game, I was a little bit worried about our prop early on when Tucker took away that rushing touchdown, but ends up having that long run, going over the rushing total. We had 50.5 rushing yards. And you said it, it's the schedule, man, right? Like, I was thinking RB2, but you got the Raiders coming up. You got the Panthers coming up. And then the Cowboys, and we'll see what they look like by then. So, yeah, Bucky Irving might be a league winner, man. As crazy as that sounds, he might be a running back one. And he's going to continue to only get better the more and more touches he gets in that offense.
Let's move on to a guy who absolutely annihilated and nuked that city. When was it? Oh, yeah, just last night. And that was one Saquon Barkley, who's still running, by the way, and still getting chunk gains. 26 carries, 255 rush yards, and 2 touchdowns. And on top of that, a little cherry on top, 4 catches for 47 yards. But he didn't find the end zone through the air. It didn't matter. Far and away the best fantasy performance, you could argue, of the entire season is in the running there against the LA Rams. Schedule upcoming at Baltimore. 26 most fantasy points allowed at the running back position. Then Carolina, oh my God, he gets Carolina at home.
Yeah,
he may reset the record book, so maybe like 300 rushing in that one. Then Pittsburgh, the first round of the fantasy playoffs, 19th most fantasy points allowed to RBs. At Washington, top 10 in fantasy points allowed to RBs. Then Dallas, that's a pretty nice fantasy football playoff schedule for arguably the best running back, although Derrick Henry's got a strong argument in the business. Number 20 in yak per attempt, 3.15. Top 10 in total missed tackles for us. Actually tied with Bucky Irving, but on far more carries in that category. But Saquon Barkley, man, the Giants looking like buffoons. Giant buffoons for not figuring out a way to sign him long-term, because he is going off with the arch rival Philadelphia Eagles, and he's going to keep bringing the noise and making a lot of fantasy owners bank the rest of the season. I know you agree.
Oh, yeah. I kind of need him to chill out a little bit, because I bet him to win Offensive Player of the Year, but right now he's looking like the MVP of the league, so I just need Offensive Player of the Year numbers. You know what I took away from last night's game, too, man, is he's going to look to break some records. The offensive line, he went up to him and he's like, we broke Shady's record because he broke the Shady McCoy record last night. They're going to look to win him a rushing title and an Offensive Player of the Year and maybe even an MVP, man. That's still, even with the loss of Jason Kelsey, a top 3 offensive line in the National Football League. And Saquon is pissed off. He's motivated. He's a video game. The stuff that he's doing on the field, you shouldn't see. Yes, fantasy leagues, all the props. I don't even care if it's a tough matchup. You play Saquon Barkley. There's a reason why, like I said coming into the season, why I liked Philadelphia so much was Saquon Barkley. I know he's only a running back, but he's so much more, man. Look what he was to that Giants offense. He pretty much carried them to the playoffs and a playoff win against Minnesota a couple of years ago. He made Daniel Jones look so good that Daniel Jones got paid. So all about Saquon Barkley. I think he's a top 5 player in the league at any position.
Yeah, and a guy that's paying massive dividends for those of you that invested a top 5 overall pick in his services back in August draft.